Hi, Jamie.
Hey Jody, how's it going?
Hey. Good. So glad to be here this morning.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it. This is a good topic today.
Yeah, it definitely is. I'm going to adjust my volume and everything. Yeah, it's a great topic today. I'm really looking forward to sharing a little bit more about it. And, we hear the word cortisol, right? We know stress hormone. Most of us know that, I think. And we don't realize how it's affecting us on so many levels. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today.
Yeah, love it.
Good. All right. Well, I am going to figure out here sharing my screen and we're going to get started. And
Perfect.
then anybody else who joins us can say hello and feel free to ask any questions in the chat as well. All right, let's see. There we go. All right. So we're going to get rolling here talking about cortisol and the mind body connection. I'm going to be talking about regulating your stress for optimal well being all the way around. And so, welcome everyone to my workshop. And as I had said, I am very open to questions or any feedback, any personal experiences. So please feel free to share those in the chat as I am moving through because there's a lot of information. This is a big topic. And as I mentioned, cortisol is something that most of us know is a stress hormone, but we don't know anything a lot deeper than that of how it works and what we can do about it, right? Whether our levels are just shooting up acutely or chronically high or low. It's really important to know what it can do in our mental and emotional state as well as in our bodies. And so I'm Jody Solberg. I have been in mental and behavioral health for the past 25 years. And it's really important for me to help people understand how their subconscious mind works. So, as someone who's been a hypnotherapist for 23 of those years, it's a really key piece that I think is missing oftentimes is people understanding their subconscious mind that's really in charge of at least 90% of everything, including those bodily processes, and how our minds affect our body, how they're so intricately connected. And in our culture, for some reason, often we think, oh, our mind's over here and our body's over here. And that is absolutely not the case. We are completely one being. And so it's really important to know how our thoughts and our emotions are affected by our body and how our body is affected by those thoughts, emotions, and beliefs. And so personally, I do have my own health experience when it comes to regulating cortisol levels. I actually happen to be more of a person who tends on the low side versus the high side. So I'm going to talk about both today because often we just hear about, when your cortisol is too high, because that's the most common. However, it definitely can go low as well. And I'm going to talk a little bit about hypnobirthing because I am also a hypnobirthing educator. And we talk a lot about not just cortisol, but another group of hormones that likes to work with cortisol in a lot of cases that can cause a lot of tension and pain. And when we're talking about stress and we're talking about our nervous systems, it's really important to understand cortisol's friends as well. So, the first thing I want to talk about is just a brief introduction to cortisol itself. And before we dive into what we can do about it, we need to understand what cortisol really is. Cortisol is not always a bad thing. It is essential for survival. It helps us to respond quickly to stressful situations, for example. But when stress becomes chronic, right, that continuous release of cortisol can begin to negatively affect our mental, emotional, and physical well being. So, cortisol is our body's primary stress hormone, like I mentioned, and it's produced by your adrenal glands in response to stress. So if we have acute stress, cortisol comes out. It's also in charge of a lot of other things. It influences our metabolism, for example, but it can be released in times of stress for our body to process that. Now, when there's chronic stress, it can lead to those imbalances because our system can get overtaxed. Cortisol works alongside another category of hormones and neurotransmitters called catecholamines. And those include adrenaline. Right? We usually hear about adrenaline. So you'll see in the picture there, right? Your adrenals and your brain are going to be, processing like things like your stress, right? And so shoots out cortisol and adrenaline, as well as dopamine and norepinephrine. In our stress response as humans, all of those things can get released. And these are the catecholamines are your fight or flight, those fear, tension, pain hormones, as I like to call them. So when you go into fight or flight mode, the catecholamines are what gets released alongside your cortisol. Now, what's called your sympathetic nervous system is what drives that fight or flight response. And we're going to talk more about that here in a few minutes. But your parasympathetic nervous system is more of your rest and digest. And so how you react to a stressor depends on which system is driving the response. Okay, so depending on what gets released. And so in general, when your autonomic nervous system, which is where your sympathetic and parasympathetic system are, when your nervous system is stimulated or activated, as I like to call it, your body releases catecholamines, and so that adrenaline and the cortisol are coming out. Now, your stress response and something I mentioned called fear, tension, pain syndrome, I said, those fear, tension, pain hormones, those activate that fight or flight. And so what happens is we have tension, right? We're on the ready to fight and defend, or to flee, right? To get away. And so when our body perceives a threat, and that's the thing that it's important to remember when these things are happening, it's not just lions, tigers, and bears coming at you, right? It can be a lot of things. It can be physical threats, absolutely. So for example, acute stress, like I was talking about, let's say you have to, you're going through the crosswalk and somebody turns the corner and you have to get out of the way of a car. You're going to have that acute stress response, and then it's going to go away. Now, when we have that really chronic stress, it doesn't always release in that same way completely, and that stress keeps going. We're under stress continuously, and in our lives today, in modern times, that often happens. And it can happen from a number of things. It can be work stress, it can be from home, it can be worries and fears and anxieties. And when we have those on an acute or a chronic level, what happens is something called fear, tension, pain syndrome, where fear, anxiety, that stress cause tension in the body and can contribute to pain, including chronic pain. So this is a process I focus on heavily in hypnobirthing and with my chronic pain clients, because fear, anxiety, and stress can all exacerbate and even cause more tension and pain. But it can also, of course, because stress and anxiety by those health conditions. We can have health anxieties. We can have fears over the things that are happening with our health and in our bodies. And we can have anxiety about doctors and procedures, right? All of those things can be really stressful. And so it leads into this cycle, this fear, tension, pain cycle. And so understanding that cycle helps us to break it through proper regulation. So, when we're talking about your overall health impact of cortisol that's prolonged, again, cortisol can be very healthy and very helpful in a lot of situations. But when we're talking about chronic, prolonged cortisol release, it can lead to anxiety, depression, burnout. It can impair your memory, impair your learning, and your emotional regulation. It can cause behavioral challenges like avoidance, irritability, procrastination. And so, mentally and emotionally, too much cortisol can disrupt how we think and feel. It can also lead to feelings of anxiety or depression and affect our ability to make clear decisions. And behaviorally, you may avoid tasks, become really irritable. But then physically, because again, it's all levels, right? Physically, high cortisol levels can have negative effects on your body, including increased risk of health issues like heart disease, lung issues, obesity, and then things like weight gain, and high blood pressure, osteoporosis, skin changes, muscle weakness, and high blood sugar. So, that's the high end of cortisol. On the low end, if it's chronically low, if there's not enough being produced, then those low cortisol levels can cause a lot of fatigue and sluggishness, hard to get out of bed in the morning, depression and anxiety as well on the low end, weakened immune system and increased susceptibility to infections, loss of resilience in stressful situations. So it's the high end of the spectrum, but also the low end, brain fog, lack of focus, low energy. It can also cause cravings for salty or sweet or both foods. And so we have this thing in my practice that my clients like to call the window of okayness. And that's where your health and everything's flowing nicely, right? Harmonious. Your body is in harmony. Your mind is in harmony. You're feeling like everything's okay. I've got this. I can handle this. Internally and emotionally, that's what's happening. It's all good, right? Your body is working optimally. Your mind is feeling like, hey, I can do this. When you start getting into that anxiety and fear and anger, that kind of fight or flight mode, right? We're going up out of that window of okayness. And that's on the high end. On the low end, it might be that freeze type of response. And it's more withdrawing and isolating and that fatigue and that sluggishness and all of those things. And so the important thing is to figure out how to get ourselves back into that window. And so when we're talking about your nervous system regulation and cortisol management, this is the picture that I was saying we would get a little bit more into with your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So your sympathetic nervous system is that fight or flight. That's that cortisol driven system. So that is going to be on the right. Your parasympathetic nervous system, your rest or digest state, is on the left. And that one is endorphin driven. So we're going to talk about how do we regulate cortisol levels, how do we inhibit those catecholamines, those fear, tension, pain hormones, and how do we release those good endorphin hormones to get ourselves back into rest and digest. The key to managing your stress is really activating that parasympathetic system, right? That rest and digest state. And so we need, in order to regulate our stress levels and therefore our cortisol levels, we need to switch from the sympathetic fight or flight system to the parasympathetic rest and digest. So endorphins, like I mentioned, are the feel-good hormones. They promote feelings of well-being and relaxation. And when the body relaxes and switches into that parasympathetic state, it secretes endorphins, which are like natural tranquilizer hormones, enhance that sense of everything's good, back in that window of okayness. And they also enhance that relaxation, and they can greatly reduce or eliminate pain, as they're actually 200 times more effective than morphine. And they build upon themselves, which is very beautiful. And when you have endorphins flowing, it inhibits those catecholamines. So the more endorphins that are secreted, those catecholamines, those constrictor and stress and pain and tension hormones are shut out, and your cortisol levels can become more regulated as well as a result of that. So if you look at that comparison here, right, and fight or flight, pupils get dilated, your heart rate goes up, you start to slow down with any non-essential system for either fighting or flighting, right? So fleeing away or fighting back, all that blood flow is going away from things like your digestion, and it is taking away from your intestines, your stomach, all of your organs internally, because everything's going towards things like your extremities so that you can fight or flee, right? And so if we go into rest and digest, into that parasympathetic state, then your heartbeat slows down, your breathing slows down, you're able to digest, and you're able to feel more comfortable, more relaxed, more calm, more comfortable for sure. Oops. All right. So next, we're going to talk about some more practical strategies for reducing that cortisol. So how do we get into that state, basically, right? That's the next step, is how do we actually do that? So I'm going to give you some strategies such as breathing techniques. Just some calm breathing can be really, really helpful for this. So you can do things like just taking a few mindful breaths, just imagining all that oxygen moving in, nice and refreshing, and moving out, relaxing. And I recommend doing a calm breathing technique that I teach in hypnobirthing, which is breathing in for a count of 4 at your own pace through your nose, doing a brief pause, and then out for twice as long, so out for 8. And if you do a few of those, you will begin to calm your system down, right? Calm down that heart rate, calm down that breathing rate. You're regulating your breathing. You can participate in physical activity, for example. So things like gentle movement, yoga, walking. You can make sure that you are getting proper nutrition for your body, that you are focusing on hydrating your body as well. All of those things keep us in that homeostasis, that nice, harmonious place, and getting quality sleep, getting enough sleep and quality sleep. Now, cortisol can absolutely disrupt your sleep pattern. So, like I was saying, high cortisol can keep us awake because we are in that high alert mode. Low cortisol can keep us from wanting to get up in the morning. And so, really focusing on those sleep routines is something that I do with clients to help them with this, of helping them to get that good quality sleep. And I do that through teaching them things like mindfulness, meditation, self hypnosis, and hypnotherapy. Even light exercise can reduce cortisol and release endorphins, and avoiding things like caffeine and sugar and staying hydrated can help. And also, it's important that we don't ignore the emotional and the mental as well, right? So physical things, yes, the breathing and all those physically based activities are important, but then we need to attend to us as whole people. So we need to look at, how do we calm our mind? because your body follows your mind. So when you can calm your body, your mind can follow. When you can calm your mind, your body can follow. And yes, breathing, exactly, Kate. Hi, thank you for joining us. Breathing is so simple and powerful. It's amazing how quickly it does calm our systems. And so remember, it is intricately linked. Your body and your mind are completely interacting with each other at all times. And so you really can start at both sides, right? You can work on the physical and you can work on the mental and emotional level. And so that's what I'm going to talk a little bit more about now with some of these strategies, is I'm going to dive deeper with you, because there are some amazing practitioners here at AHS who can talk all about nutrition, who can talk all about hydration and supplementation and all of those wonderful things. And I do all of these things to help regulate my own cortisol levels, to help pull myself out of that adrenal fatigue that I was in, which was those chronically low levels. It was really important for me to attend to all of these pieces. And, there are so many great techniques and strategies you can utilize on the physical side that I'm going to let all of my wonderful fellow practitioners share with you. Today, I'm going to talk about some of the mindfulness, the meditation, and specifically hypnosis, so self hypnosis and hypnotherapy, to help you to strengthen your awareness of your mind body connection. Your mind and body is connected, whether you are aware of it or not, but that awareness and strengthen your relationship in that mind body connection so that you can help yourself, right? You can feel empowered to do something about this. Okay. So on all levels, it's important to feel like you have options and some go-to tools and resources that you can utilize when you feel like your nervous system is getting very activated and your cortisol levels are high or low. And so remembering that our thoughts and emotions directly influence our bodies. And we always talk in what I do about your beliefs, create your thoughts, create your emotions, create your behaviors. People think of behaviors as outward behaviors. It's not always the case. Yes, outward behaviors and habits, sure, and internal actions and behaviors. So we get into habits internally as well. And so your thoughts and emotions directly influence your bodily processes. Those things that we don't even have to think about are all in your subconscious mind. So think about that, right? You don't have to think and will your body how to pump blood through your system, how to make your heart beats, how to have the oxygen flow throughout your blood and your body. We don't have to think about those things. We don't have to think about, okay, digest now. Right? We don't have to direct ourselves. It happens subconsciously. And these cortisol, catecholamine releases, these hormones also happen more on that automatic level. And so our body goes into a little bit of autopilot and it gets into patterns. And so it's important for us to realize that we can empower ourselves, because you hold that power to be able to manage your stress. It's not out of your control. You really can do some things to help yourself along the way, to help support your body's health and well-being and healing. And so our mind body connection plays a really crucial role in how we experience and manage stress. Every thought or emotion we have creates that physical response in the body. So release of cortisol, release of those catecholamines. When we're engaging in negative mental rehearsal, which means repeatedly imagining negative outcomes, worst case scenarios, fearful thoughts, it reinforces that stress response. That constant anticipation of stress releases more cortisol, which further activates the fight or flight system. It keeps you in that nervous system activation mode. Not only intensifies tension, but also increases the likelihood of physical symptoms. like headaches, muscle tightness, digestive issues. But on the other hand, positive mental rehearsal, practicing, visualizing calming scenarios, successful outcomes, and at least telling yourself things like, it's figure outable. I can learn how to do it. I can figure it out. It's all going to be okay, or it's going to work out, right? Calming yourself down from those worst case scenarios, or I can get support for this. I can get help for this. I can learn more about whatever this is. Those types of things where you're moving towards more positive outcomes is going to signal to your brain that you're safe. It's going to activate that parasympathetic nervous system, in turn, reducing those cortisol and catecholamine levels, relaxing your muscles, and promoting the release of endorphins that are going to help you feel more relaxed, content, and in control. So, one powerful technique of mentally rehearsing moments of calm could be, you can actually do the physical and the mental emotional together. You could take a walk in nature as you're imagining a successful outcome to a challenge. You can orient yourself wherever you are. Show yourself that I'm in a safe place. There's no threats, because again, your body reacts to perceived threats like it does to actual physical threats. And so, calming yourself, coaching yourself through, walking yourself through the fact that right now I'm safe, I'm calm. There's something called uh, havening that is another technique that is great, where you can just, start to really self soothe and do things like this. You can also, kind of like you're petting your cat or your dog, start at your shoulders and go down to your elbows. Don't go up against the grain. You wouldn't do that with them either. They wouldn't like that. They'd probably scoot away from you, right? Or bilateral, like butterfly taps, or massaging around your ears, right? There's things you can do as you're visualizing, as you're thinking about the fact that I'm calm, I'm safe, it's okay. Right? It release those endorphins, bring down the stress levels. So there's things like that you can do. You can also engage your senses with a mindfulness technique that I really like. And you can do that by just picking things out in your environment. It's called the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. You find 5 things you can see, and you notice the textures, the colors, details that you wouldn't notice before. It brings you into the present moment. 4 things that you are able to touch, textures. You can feel different textures. 3 things that you can hear. So pick out some sounds that can give you comfort and calm. The hum of the refrigerator, perhaps, or the air coming through the vents, or the birds chirping outside, or your family in the other room. I have a client who was continuously in that fight or flight mode. Her nervous system was very activated. I've been a trauma based therapist for my entire career, and she's been through a lot of trauma. And we were talking about what can bring her more calm and more comfort. And it was listening to her cats eat or play, made her realize she could calm her nervous system, that everything was safe, that everything was okay. And so, what are those things that you can hear? And then 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. So maybe you have some nice calming tea and you can smell or you can taste that, or products that you have, like lotions or candles, things that are calming and soothing. Find those things for yourself and engage your senses. It will give signals to your body, and it's okay. Now, I want to move into, I said, the conscious and the subconscious mind, and talking a little bit about hypnotherapy for cortisol regulation. Your conscious mind, as it says here, is the captain and the crew, but your subconscious mind is really what's driving that ship. Okay, so hypnotherapy is going to help you activate parasympathetic system. In hypnotherapy, I use a lot of those exercises I was just talking about. I use breathing exercises, guided relaxation and visualization techniques, affirmations, different somatic techniques for regulation to help clients reduce stress, fear, anxiety, and tension, and promote calm and regulate their emotions, regulate their nervous systems. And in the case, for example, of hypnobirthing, like I mentioned, I'm a hypnobirthing educator. In the case of an expectant mother, hypnobirthing can be used to release that fear, tension, pain cycle, regulating cortisol, inhibiting those catecholamines directly tied to that fear, tension, pain syndrome, and releasing those analgesic endorphins. And those techniques are some of the ones that I'm going to share with you, teaching them self hypnosis, because all hypnosis is self hypnosis. Hypnotherapy is just adding in those therapeutic techniques. And that's facilitated by a professional like myself to shift from fear and tension to relaxation, calm, and comfort. And so, hypnotherapy in general is just an excellent tool for reducing those stress levels by directly engaging your subconscious mind to help you promote relaxation and release tension. And so, let's talk about what's on your mind, because we were just talking about the negative mental rehearsal and the positive mental rehearsal. And your subconscious mind, just like we were talking about with the engine in the ship, is like that silent operator behind the scenes, processing information, forming beliefs, influencing our actions without us consciously even realizing it. So you can imagine it as like that autopilot of your mind, or that engine that's driving the ship, just navigating through your daily life based on the programming it's received. And the programming is heavily influenced by authority figures from when we're from a very young age. So literally from the womb on, we're being programmed about, who are you? How does the world work? How do relationships work? What are your beliefs about everything in the world? And so, what are you believing, and what are those thoughts around your health and well-being? Or, what have you learned from the medical establishment, from parents? What kind of patterns and cycles have you been perpetuating? And often it's being very disconnected from our bodies, being separated. Like I said, in our culture, for some reason, we like to think like our mind and our body's over here, and we often will override our bodies. And that doesn't help us release the stress. It actually aids in holding on to the stress and in creating those chronic stress levels. So, for example, from a very young age, think about this. We are told, well, you can't just attend to your body when your body feels like it. Somebody else has to give you permission and give you a timeline on when to do that, when to eat, when to go get a drink of water, when to use the restroom. And so we're constantly taught to override our body's signs and signals. And so instead of like our fur babies or animals in the wild, instead of just shaking it off when we're coming out of really stressful or traumatic situations, literally they shake and get it out of their nervous system to reset and regulate their nervous systems. We hold on to the stress. We have chronic stress. We're in these situations every day where there's more and more and more that gets piled on. And our subconscious, it has these beliefs about that that's normal, about that's okay, about that, oh, it's nothing, it's just this. We make excuses until those levels are so dysregulated that we go into things like I did and burn ourselves out, right? I completely burned myself out because one of my beliefs is I had to work really, really hard to be successful. Well, guess what? I don't have physical work. I don't work with my hands laboring, for example. But how did I translate that? That was taught to me from a very young age. I worked tons of hours. I piled on responsibilities and I overrode and didn't take care of myself first, because that's the other thing that's often ingrained in us, and often, especially as women, is that we have to take care of everyone and everything else before ourselves, or we're selfish. And so, I was taking care of everyone and everything else, and I was piling on and I was achieving, because that's another thing that often happens in our society or in our families is, everything's achievement based. I'm so proud of you because you achieved. And so there's all these things. I wanted to give you that example personally because think about there's like those three different beliefs that were working behind the scenes for me that led me into that adrenal fatigue and that chronic low cortisol and low everything actually level. And so it's really important to know what's going on behind the scenes, because those really deeply ingrained habits and beliefs are formed in our subconscious from a very young age, from the very beginning. And it influences our daily decisions and ultimately how we feel mentally, emotionally, and physically. And so our subconscious is heavily influenced by repetition, repeated thoughts, experiences, and emotions. It's that repository for our beliefs, whether they're empowering or they're limiting us, whether they're healthy or unhealthy. And whatever we constantly think about creates that blueprint that our subconscious mind follows, impacting our decisions, impacting our habits and behaviors, both externally and internally. So there's this like seamless connection between what's happening in the brain and how it impacts your body. It's also true with our body, right? Those behaviors we engage in, such as physical exercise, can make us feel better. They can change our brain, they can change our moods. And so again, it goes both ways. So it's important to remember that this is a cyclical process. And in the case of cortisol, our subconscious mind is responsible again for those bodily processes and our nervous system regulation. So whenever we're thinking those stressful, anxious, fearful thoughts, or we have negative self talk, negative beliefs about our bodies, our health, our ability to heal, all of those things, those are those perceived threats that can keep your nervous system in activation mode. So really, really important to realize that, fear, anxiety, stress triggers that response in your body that leads to increased pain or dysregulated, hormones and things in your body. And the perception makes all the difference. However, we have the ability to change. How exciting is that? We can all make those changes. We have the ability to change our thoughts, change our emotional and mental responses to stress, and therefore our body's responses to it will change as well. That will follow. When your mind starts that, your body will follow. And that's one of the best ways to start, because that is something you can control. Your thoughts are something you can choose. And yes, you have those automatic thoughts that you've been thinking since early childhood, and you can create a new neural pathway. That neuroplasticity is your brain's ability to change and adapt through life, and it never ends. There is no expiration date. It's a complex process that involves forming those new neural connections, strengthening of existing connections, and pruning some unused connections. And neuroplasticity is essential for learning, memory, recovery from injury. And again, cortisol can be a good thing, and it can help with all of those things when it is working optimally in your body and it's not overtaxed and it's not overproducing, right? And so neuroplasticity is your brain's capacity, right? Continue growing, evolving in response to our experiences. So as we start to think new thoughts and we start to have new experiences, those neural pathways can be shaped, they can be molded, and they can be repetitively used, right? The new thoughts that create the new feelings, create the new behaviors, and that will help you to cause change, not just in your mind, but affect change in your body. You can help boost your body's healing ability, whatever types of medical interventions, whatever types of supplementation, nutrition, exercise, hydration, sleep, all those physical things I was talking about. You can help work with that with your mind versus at cross purposes. If you are trying to do all the things physically and you are still activating that negative mental rehearsal and causing your nervous system to go into that fight or flight mode with fear, anxiety, and stress, it's working at cross purposes from all the things you're trying to do physically. So it's so important to work together for this, right? In the case of chronic pain, for example, neuroplasticity helps explain why acute stress or pain can become chronic stress or pain, and why chronic pain may spread to other areas. Because there's a saying that goes, neurons that fire together wire together. And so there's a two-step process, right? It is possible to change those dysfunctional patterns, but when you are thinking about these worst case scenarios and then your body starts to play that out, it becomes connected in your brain. So going out and going for a walk, for example, if you have negative mental rehearsal about that you're going to have pain in this situation, or I was talking about birthing, right? That pain has to, if your belief is that pain has to accompany birth, those things are wired together in your brain. The wonderful thing is that new programming wins out over old programming. And once you think a new thought and have a new belief, you can only have one a belief about something at a time. And so it can overwrite and you can form new pathways and you can choose that new pathway over and over and over again. And it will absolutely cement that in. So how do we do that? I'm going to close out on how we actually do that. How do we make this change? And so we're going to talk about hypnosis briefly, what it is, and how I can help you to learn how to help yourself. And so, hypnosis is really important to understand that it's completely natural state. It's a mental state of highly focused concentration and awareness. So you actually have heightened awareness and focus, not a lack of awareness. And it's also the place where neuroplasticity is at its height. So we're highly suggestible, which means to change, right? And so you're able to create real and lasting change in this more relaxed state. That's all it is. I literally tell people, what do I do as a hypnotherapist? I teach people how to relax. That's all it truly is. Hypnosis is used to help people relax, diminish the sensation of pain, to increase those endorphins and inhibit those fear, tension, pain causing catecholamines, and to regulate our nervous systems and to facilitate desired behavioral change. Again, internal and external. And so what hypnotherapists do, like me, is we take those therapeutic techniques and we apply those with our clients. We guide you through doing that, how to visualize, how to imagine. For example, using those breathing techniques and the relaxation techniques, visualizations, and affirmations in that more susceptible state of neuroplasticity, right? Where we're at that heightened level when your subconscious mind, where your brain is able to make those changes and have them stick. We do that and we do it intentionally. That's the only difference. Your brain is actually created to go into these different altered states all the time. Altered not being, it's not artificially altered. That makes sense. It's that your brain changes brainwave states successfully throughout the day. It goes up and down. So we have 5 brainwave states. Gamma is really high. That's your aha moments, the light bulb moments. Beta is where we live most of the time, like right now. We're wide awake, engaged, alert, communicating with each other and moving through the world, right? Now, alpha and theta are slower. As things slow down, when you're getting ready to go to sleep, you're relaxing on the couch, you're daydreaming. You go into that autopilot mode in the car on the way home from the grocery store, thinking about what you're going to make for dinner and your to do list. You start to slow those brainwave states down. You're just really focused. When you're even, in the shower or you're doing something creative, art or play, like, that's gentle, or maybe you're just relaxing on the porch in your rocking chair with a cup of tea, right? We're slowing things down. Alpha is a little slower than beta, that relaxation mode. So some mindfulness and meditation lives there, prayer, things like that. Theta, a little lower, even a little deeper. Hypnosis can get us a little deeper between alpha and theta. And that's where the magic happens. That alpha and theta state is where that neuroplasticity is at its peak. That can happen through emotion and repetition and authority figures and things like that, like I was saying, but it can take in the conscious mind 400 repetitions for change to happen. It's so much less. Even with play and just activating your creativity and imagination, it's only 20 times. With hypnosis, it's far less, a fraction of that. And then delta is your deep sleep. So that's your deep dreamless sleep. But alpha and theta is where creativity, imagination, and neuroplasticity live. And so all we're doing with hypnosis and hypnotherapy is intentionally helping you relax so that you can access those states for a purpose, right? For a very healthy, helpful purpose. So, in order to rewire your brain for whatever you want, so success in every way, so whatever that looks like to you, for health, for well being, right? What we can do is we can consciously choose more supportive beliefs, positive thoughts, learn to relax our minds and bodies, practice that positive mental rehearsal, and that will help us overwrite any negative programming and literally change our brains, our experience with chronic stress and chronic pain. Okay. So, any kind of chronic health conditions, it's going to shift our experience with that. Now, in order to reprogram, we have to focus on what we want versus what we don't want, that positive mental rehearsal. And so, what is your definition of how you would like to feel? What, based on your test results and what's going on with your health and your body, what would you like to shift? What would you like to change? It's the outward habits, absolutely, but it's also the inner habits that we can change as well. And what is that going to mean for you when you are healthy, when things are better? What is that going to feel like? What is that going to look like? How is it going to change your interactions, your ability to be active, your ability to interact with your family, right? It's all of those things that can bring the emotion into it, and that can heighten that experience of change. It can help solidify that. And so your subconscious responds best to your definition of what health and success and all of these things are versus somebody else's. And so I have a very simple formula for you. However, you can shift this up. And so you can tell yourself something like, my mind is relaxed, my body is relaxed. Every day in every way, it gets better and better. Now you can substitute it for whatever is going on with you and your health and well-being. And that is going to help direct your body. Also, I'm becoming more and more regulated. I'm learning how to reduce my stress levels. I'm figuring out how to XYZ in my health every single day. Those types of directive statements of I'm learning, I'm growing in this area, I'm healing, I'm figuring this out. Those types of things will also give messages to your subconscious to find all the ways to relax, to find all the ways to heal. It will give it a job to do versus telling yourself that I'm so stressed out, I'm so anxious. I feel awful all the time. You tell your subconscious things like that, it believes it to be true and it's not looking for a solution. It's not looking for a way to change that. So you want to set the stage when we're getting into that alpha mode in order to make those changes. And all that means is getting quiet and being in a nice, comfortable, relaxed space and just tuning things out, just getting into a nice breathing, comfortable space, just like I taught you earlier, right? That's it. When we take those things like the imagination, the positive mental rehearsal, shift those beliefs. I can heal. I am healing. I'm figuring out how to heal. I'm getting closer to healing every day. All of those things we just talked about. So that positive expectancy, using your imagination to think about what will that look like? What will that feel like? What's going to happen when that happens? And then the belief, right? That belief and that conviction, they all come together, right? Convinced that you can have a positive outcome. It's so important to believe that you can heal and to be convinced that you can move towards healing in order to heal. And so you just need those ingredients. And you can progressively relax your body. That's one of my favorite ways. There's lots of different ways to get into this space, but start with the breathing that I mentioned, and then start bottom up or top down is up to you. But I love to start at the bottom, relaxing your toes and your feet, and then moving up, ankles, calves, knees, thighs, all the way up. And just imagining your body working optimally and healthfully, and that everything is relaxing, releasing tension. Remember, we talked about stress and tension and pain. As you're moving upward, relaxing each part of your body, focusing on it, moving that focus upwards as you go. With every exhale, imagine releasing tension, stress, and pain. This is what I walk my clients through in hypnotherapy every single day. And so this is so helpful in reducing stress, improving focus, enhancing your overall well being, changing your habits, internal and external, resolving any inner conflict that you might have about health and well being, some of those ingrained, deeper beliefs and thoughts that are maybe in conflict with what you want to happen. Helps with those chronic pain conditions. It can also help with acute pain and stress, inner child healing, trauma, just really, really an amazing opportunity for you to boost and activate that inner healing ability. Now, when we're looking at success rates with hypnotherapy, working with a professional like myself, a single session, you can get up to 17 to 20% rate of change in one single session. But like I said, repetition changes everything, right? It makes those changes stick. And so 3 sessions is 45 to 50% rate of change. And 5 or more sessions is 85 to 90% plus. When we get to 6 sessions, we're looking at a 93% recovery rate. The CDC says that at least 85% of all physical health conditions have a psychological component. That's huge. And so, like I said, directing your mind to help heal your body is working with the goal versus at cross purposes and against it. You can do all the things physically and still not get better. And I know because I've been there, because I wasn't healing properly. My body wasn't healing properly. And there was something going on. And I, of course, doing what I do, knew there had to be something, there had to be a subconscious block or barrier or something going on that was keeping me from healing the way I knew I could. And even that my doctors were like, well, we don't know what else to do. This is all we can do for you. this must be as good as it gets. And that wasn't acceptable for me. And so I went to one of my colleagues and I did practice my self hypnosis. And I went to another hypnotherapist. I was like, help me figure out what the thing is. Because sometimes we need that outside support. We need somebody else to help us to be able to figure out what that is. And with hypnotherapy, that 93% proven, by research, like recovery rate after 6 sessions of hypnotherapy, could take, if we're talking about other mental health therapies, it could take months or even years. And so I have a few options I want to offer as I finish today. And one of them is working with me individually. So I do have individual sessions with clients, so you can work with me that way. And we can have private sessions, we can personalize based on your needs. And so I'll have a conversation with you, help you figure out how many sessions I think we should start with for what you're dealing with. And we can go from there. So I'm going to give you a link here in a moment to book a free call with me to explore those options. I also have my Clarity Collective program, which is a monthly group program where you can come and basically get support and guidance done with you, as well as DIY self hypnosis. So I do guided hypnotherapy sessions where you can have access to my entire library of guided recordings around things like emotional regulation, which we just heard is so important for our bodies. Also, all that physical health and healing and success in all different areas of your life. And I do 2 live group calls. So I'll do live guided sessions, some of the somatic release techniques, coaching in different areas. We have a different theme every single month. And then you have that on demand 24/7 access to that library of recordings. And the last option that I have is I team up with Kate, who's here. Yeah, isn't that amazing, Jamie? The 85%. I just saw your comment about that. Yeah, incredible. So think about this: energy healing and hypnotherapy together. So Kate and I, like I said, who's one of our practitioners here at AHS, she's our master energy healing practitioner. She and I team up to help you to release things like chronic stress and anxiety and pain, and help you get better sleep, and help you relieve self-doubt, imposter syndrome, all of these things that are going to help you to reduce effects of chronic pain, chronic stress. And the sleep, like I said, is huge when it comes to cortisol as well. And so we do that too. And so we have inner healing sessions that we team up to do together. She helps you release the negative energy and emotions and that have maybe been stuck. Remember that chronic stress we were talking about? And then I help you reprogram and repattern your subconscious mind so that you're not continuing to go through those same processes of getting that stuck over and over again, of helping you to release and starting with that subconscious mind and directing your body. So those are the different options that I have. There are some links there that you can check out, but I would invite you to book a call with me. Book a free 30-minute call with me to explore your options for support so I can answer your questions and we can see which of those is going to be the best fit for you. You can find me at psychedupsuccess.com, on socials at psychedupsuccess, all the things. And like I said, go ahead and book that free call just to see what is going to be the best fit for you and how I can help you and how hypnotherapy can be of benefit. So thank you all so much for being here with me today. I know we are almost out of time, but I'm going to, come back in and just say how much I appreciate each and every one of you for being here. And yes, Kate, I love our inner healing sessions too. So those of you, if you were here live, wonderful, thank you. If you're here on the replay, know that you can reach out to me with any questions. You can DM me in the platform as well as book those free 30-minute calls with me so that we can chat. I would love to connect with you. I would love to help support you in any way that I can. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of the workshops throughout the day. Take care.